Okay, after a full day of very interesting talks, some talks about the future of humanity, some talks about extremely interesting startups, I must admit I'm feeling a bit small here, because what I have for you guys is a very simple tale about a bunch of data scientists that are working hard to make a difference in a company that is about 200 years old. So it's rather challenging. Swiss Mobiliar, you may not, probably never heard of them. I certainly hadn't until I went to Switzerland. They are a company that was founded in 1826. They've been around forever. Everybody in Switzerland trusts them. They are market leader for home insurance. Like 1 in 3 homes in Switzerland are insured by them. And they are also third in car insurance and first in SME insurance. So really, really trusted brand in Switzerland, and a brand that it has actually a very interesting organizational structure. They are a cooperative. So that means that they actually give back money to people when there's no claims. So recently they've posted pretty good results, and they've been returning on average 150 million back to people every 2 years. So it's I find that pretty interesting, and I'm actually quite proud to work for such a company. Right, so my talk, because I didn't really know what the audience was going to be, my talk is going to be a little bit kind of 2 different talks. First part of the talk is more about, the transformation that's going on inside the company in terms of how data science is getting established over the years. And the second part of the talk is going to be a bit more about technical stuff, but not going too deep into the details. But I think for some of you it will be something interesting that you appreciate to hear about. So let's talk about the organizational aspect, the vision that we have to transform this company into a data-centric organization. So I'll start by the question, what are we doing with data today? And we're mainly doing 3 things. We are optimizing well-established processes. So for example, you know that in the insurance industry, there's actually very little in the way of interchange formats, data interchange formats. So you got really interesting, let's say, data workflows, where people just say there's a small group of people in the company that have partners and have suppliers and so on, or customer interaction, and everything goes on by email, and there's PDFs attached, there's Word documents attached, Excel files attached. And all that is essentially something that we've been working on automating with robotic process automation. It's really, really low-hanging fruits. But it's not really the most interesting thing to be doing. So we're also trying to innovate within the current business model, trying to find new ways to, for example, do fraud detection, or to upsell or cross-sell in different ways with the existing data. But what we really want to do is to go even further and say, let's reshape the key aspects of the business model so that we can do insurance in a different way. And for that, we've been looking into synergies with companies that we have acquired in the Swiss market. For example, we acquired a pretty big small ads company. So people who, for example, looking for apartments to rent or homes to buy, or people are looking for cars or stuff like that. So the small ads site that's used by everybody in Switzerland, we acquired that in order to get access to the data. Obviously, there's some legal aspects we need to clarify and so on. But so there's these things going on where we're preparing ourselves to become a more data-centric organization where the actual business is reshaped. So you're thinking, so if you're doing all that, why do you say you still are trying to get to that stage? So the thing is, when you're looking at something from a distance of 10,000 feet, everything looks kind of the same and everything looks good. The thing is, in detail, all of these things are happening, but they are happening in a very uncoordinated way. So we're basically looking, we started looking at ourselves in the mirror and started saying, where are we in these early days of becoming a data-centric organization? And so that's what we came up with. We said, today, what we're doing as data science inside the company is we are essentially providing isolated services to the various business units. But what we want to do is we want to go out there cross-functional and transversally and just serve the whole company. And eventually actually become a key strategic driver. So that's a completely different role than we have today. What we are working mostly is on optimizing existing processes, but what we really want to do is, as I said before, to disrupt, to come up with new ways of doing insurance. In terms of integration, it's very manual. We are far, far from having data science included in end-to-end digitization of the processes. Even measuring the value of data science is extremely difficult nowadays. Typically, it goes like this. You go to the business stakeholder and you ask them, okay, so we've done this for you. What is it that, how do you quantify? How can we put a figure on this in terms of savings or in terms of added value? And they just say, I can work better, but I don't actually know how to quantify this. So there's some work to do there. And in terms of data sources that we're using, we're basically still using the traditional old databases that we have inside the company. And there's so much more data that we could be exploring. So what happened was we went through a phase of organic growth between 2015 and 2018, where you could see data teams popping up in the company. There was the customer analytics team in Bern. There was the cognitive computing in Zurich. There was the digital transformation in Geneva. And there's actually a partner that we have here in Lisbon with which we do nearshore of data science that's closer. And what's happening nowadays is that we are actually getting organized. So there's an institutionalization of data science. There's a new department that is responsible for data strategy. It's responsible for identifying use cases for cognitive computing, to make sure that we are there in terms of customer analytics and web analytics, and that actually manages the research lab that we have at ETH Zurich. And overall, just takes the proactive role of going out to the business and making sure that we are not missing any opportunities. So a data-centric Swiss Mobiliar, this 200-year-old company, how would it look like? It would look like a company that is forward-looking, that is adapting to new technology, that has company-wide analytics, that has analytics as a process and not just a bunch of projects going on, where data is no longer in silos, because there's a lot of that as well, not only for legal reasons. That's kind of well justified, but there's also lots of people in the company that protect their little gardens, and data that is used as a strategic asset and is actually measurable, the impact of data science. And obviously, most important of all, the backing of management. So that's kind of what's going on in terms of organization and where we want to be heading to. Now, I go to the second part of the talk where I give some examples in concrete of applications of artificial intelligence to try and change the way we do business. So one thing we've been doing is been trying to do claims handling in a much more efficient way using AI. So say what happens today is you get a decision tree-like way of selecting your claim on the website. So that's all in German, but I'll translate that for you in the way I can as well. So essentially, you go to the website and say you got a problem in your house. So you say, I got a problem on something I own. And then it asks you, is it your car, is it your house? And you select house, and then what is it? It's water. OK. This is not too bad from a user experience point of view, but actually you want to enable some more natural ways of interacting. So what we've been doing is we came up with a very simple experiment where we said, what if we take all the claims descriptions in the databases, the short ones, and we try to run a simple text classifier on that. And surprisingly, it's actually not too hard to get good results. You get immediately off-the-shelf sklearn SVM applied with some word embedding. You get, I don't know, 85% accuracy. So it's pretty impressive. And there's obviously more we're going to be doing on that now in order to change the way we handle claims. You may be thinking maybe it's not the best thing to have the person write. So obviously, a step that you can do before that is have speech recognition that translates from voice to text that precedes this step. The challenge in Switzerland is that speech recognition is quite hard to do, especially for Swiss German, because there's a lot of dialects of German going on in the Swiss German side of Switzerland. And that really makes it a challenge for us. Other things we're doing, for example, say you have a damage on your car. So you have this accident, you go and report the claim to us, and you take a photograph of the damage, and you take a photograph of the car plate. So what we want to do is to enable the automatic recognition of this damage, the severity of the damage, and eventually even come up with a sort of a quote, or automatic quote on how much it will cost to repair. And so the customer can be updated within 10 minutes of sending us the data. Another thing we're doing is looking into improving the way our sales advisors work with the SME. So essentially, they have a whole dashboard where the SME contacts them, and just by typing the name into the tool, they get a risk code prediction. So the risk code is very important to determine what kind of insurance premium they're going to quote to the customer. But they also get examples of similar clients, of relevant products that they can offer that SME customer, and sample claims. Other things that are going on more on the life side, so life insurance. There's a lot of work, especially in the US, in new ways of doing underwriting. So when someone applies to have a life insurance with us, it's usually a long process of about 6 months. It can come to that amount of time because you might have to send the person to make some medical exams, and then that takes time to wait for the results and so on. So what we are doing is we are looking into more modern ways of doing underwriting. And one of the things that are going on in the US is, for example, Munich Re, who are the major reinsurer in the world, have produced a study where they show that the number of steps per day, it's actually the second most discriminative variable to determine someone's life expectancy. And these are results that just came out a few months ago. So basically, nobody before has done underwriting in this way, at least not based on data, evidence that comes from data. Another thing that's going on is Swiss Re, the second largest reinsurer in the world, they have produced a smoker model, smoker propensity model, which is able to essentially say whether someone, regardless of what they say in their application, whether someone is likely to be a smoker or not. And so that can accelerate the underwriting, because if you have a high precision model, you're going to be passing to immediate acceptance a lot of cases, and you don't need any human to look into that application. And then some funny stuff that are going on. We're still trying to decide whether it's just something that's good for marketing or it's actually useful for accelerating the underwriting. Is people just take a selfie of themselves using the phone, and they go through the underwriting process like that. And so components of underwriting system that is machine learning based involve us looking into third-party data that we could use, obviously with the consent of the person, and then looking into what the senior underwriters do to decide on the approval of an application, have a machine learning system, learn on that, and obviously the robotic process automation that is always accelerating the processes. So these are the three main components of an underwriting system for life. And these are just examples of things we are doing, and I hope I gave you a good flavor. I think I ran out of time, but if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you.